when your husband is facing extradition, when they're facing first-degree murder. This is the United States government. We are nobody.
Welcome to More Than an Inmate's Girlfriend. I'm your host, Jay, and we have a really special guest today. Her name is Kristin Brimager, but most of you will probably recognize her social media as The Real Inmate's Wife, where she speaks about her experiences being married to someone who's serving a 26-year second-degree murder sentence, which he pled guilty to for murdering his then-girlfriend in Panama. So this is the type of story that at the time was all over the news. Like, she was harassed. She calls it abused, and I would agree with that. And just thrown into something that she had no idea about until it was really too late. I really wanted to sit down and have an honest conversation with her about how she got through it. Her faith, I knew, had really taken her through it. So I really wanted to get that one-on-one talking time with her to talk that through and learn from her experiences. She does speak a lot about this on her social media, so I highly recommend you check her out if you have social media, because, and I say it in the interview, when I first came across her, I remember messaging AJ like, oh my gosh, like this is insane, just because when you first read the story of what her husband allegedly did, it's like, whoa, I cannot imagine this woman is going online saying that everything's okay. But she's not. She's actually really not. And if you actually watch her social media and you spend time like watching the different videos, not once has she said anything about it being okay or justifying it by any means. She really doesn't. She really talks about how horrific it was. But she also talks about a lot more than that. And then once you get to know her and you learn from this woman, who's obviously very competent, successful, stable human being, you learn more about her family and her relationship and how they've grown. And I just really grew to deeply respect her because she's doing the work that a lot of people are too afraid to do, which is come out publicly as someone who is and was married to someone that has pled guilty to such a crime that was so public at the time. I think throughout this conversation, you guys will see just how important her voice is for those families that are deeply impacted by things like this, because it's not easy. And what she went through was not easy. And how she got through it is a miracle. And her ability to share her story is also miraculous. Her ability to move past the negativity in the off chance that someone hears her that needs to hear her, that she can help people who are in similar situations, that forgiveness is a long road, but it's possible, and that people make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that someone's one mistake, despite the gravity of it, doesn't mean that it's the end of their life. And I think people who make deep mistakes have the ability to stop others from making deep mistakes the way nobody else could. I always say to my husband, like, the difference between me coming in and preaching to people who are incarcerated versus him going in and preaching to young kids or whatever, it's very different. It's going to be a very different response. Because it is. Because my husband's been through it. My husband understands. Her and her husband have a story that only certain people can relate to, and those people could need help. They are in a unique position to be able to help people in this world. As always, if you are enjoying the show, please like, share, and comment. You can hit the plus button to follow the show. You can follow us on social media if you wish, at More Than an Inmate's GF on TikTok, or at podcast_prisongf on Instagram. Also, don't forget to get your free gift catalog sent to your loved one who's incarcerated by going to www.morethaninmate'sgirlfriend.com, entering the code JANAJ, JAEANDAJ, to make the catalog free, and enter the shipping information of your loved one so that we can send them catalog. The first round of catalogs are going out this week and then probably monthly afterwards. So we're very excited. They finally arrived and we're going to get them shipped out ASAP. So please hurry and get your loved one signed up so that they can receive one and start purchasing gifts for you and your loved ones in the free world. And with that, I'm going to leave you to it. Take care, guys. Bye. Kristin, thank you so much for coming. I've been waiting forever to get to speak to you one-on-one, so thank you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
So obviously you knew your husband, Brian, for a long time before this all went down. Everyone is going to want to know, how did your relationship start? What was it about him when you met him?
Yeah, so we met actually in 2004 at a karaoke bar in Washington, D.C., and I had just come out of a really emotionally abusive relationship with someone who just always put me down and was so rude and to me and just always breaking me down. And when I met my husband, my future husband, Brian, he was just so happy. He had such a warm personality. And he just made me feel very physically safe. He was a very big dude. He was a Marine, and he was incredibly attractive. So, of course, we were attracted to each other physically. But his personality, he was just such a warm person that he just made me feel so good about myself. And when I was with him, we were just so happy. And we both had a lot of things in common. We both really were interested in politics. And we had both been impacted by 9/11. He had actually joined the Marines after 9/11, and I was working in the government. But we had a lot in common. We really connected and had so much fun together.
Aw, that sounds so sweet. You were young, too, 20 years ago. Wow. That's a history.
I know. It's very young.
And then what happened? It was a little bit on and off for a while. So if it started so great, what happened that led you guys to separate?
It was pretty messy. He was actually going to be going back to California, leaving DC, and kind of like, I'm ready to be done with this. And it was very messy. We were basically both not emotionally healthy. He was very selfish, and I had very low self-esteem, and I was just really happy to get what I could out of him. He made me feel so good. So that's why I probably stuck with him for so long after it was on again and off again, or why I was so willing to go back to the relationship, because he always made me feel so good when I was with him. He'd been married when he was like 19.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't interested in getting married again. And every time we were dating, we ended up having some sort of disagreement because I wanted to be married and he didn't. That's why we broke up every time.
So he just didn't want to settle down, and you were like, I want babies and I want marriage.
Exactly. And I don't blame him, because he had been married so young that he didn't want to be nailed down, right?
And for whatever reason, he kept coming back.
Yeah, we loved each other and we got along so well. It was a hard thing, but we both weren't healthy either, right? He was selfish. I was very needy.
I think a lot of people are going to relate to that type of relationship. We've all been in them. And then at the time of the crime, were you guys even speaking?
We were talking, but only about our daughter, because we hadn't been together for over 2 years. It was over 2 years. We broke up in October the year before, and we basically only talked about our daughter. I was so pissed that he went down there. He would email me once in a while. We didn't talk every day by any means. We rarely emailed even while he was down there. And then after the crime was the first time he called me. And I obviously didn't know he had done anything.
Right.
But we just talked about our daughter. I would be giving him updates, and I was kind of like, when the heck are you coming home? Like, this sucks being a single mom, you know, because he was supposed to come back and help take care of her so that we could pull her out of daycare, which is super expensive.
And when he called you to say he was back, did you know he was coming back, or were you surprised?
He called me and said, hey, I'm going to be coming back. And I was thinking, it's about freaking time. Because it was just a long break.
Yeah.
I didn't know how long he was going. I just knew he was going for a bit. And I could have understood maybe 6 weeks, but I was like, this is a long time. And it sounds really selfish, but I was really annoyed because I wanted help with our daughter and I had really moved on. I was like, I'm done. I thought we were completely over. And then when he came back, I still remember picking him up at the airport. And you know how like when you look at someone and you're trying to read them?
Yeah.
We hadn't seen each other for months. So it was like we were trying to read each other and we hugged, but it was very weird trying to figure out, because I think he was definitely wanting to get back together. And I was like, what the heck just happened? I thought we were totally done.
I know that there's been a lot of judgment around how you guys got married pretty quickly after he came back from Panama.
Yeah.
So how did that unfold?
This is what people don't understand. When you do something really bad, like if you look at people who commit a crime, they go back to their mom.
Yeah.
And now I understand it more. He was freaked out and I was safe. Yeah. And it's not that we didn't love each other. We always loved each other. But he was very much trying to read me and how my response was to him. And I mean, I was kind of closed off, but it was like a moth to a flame. Mm-hmm. I mean, we've always had a massive connection. And so it was a couple of days of, I guess we're getting back together. And then it really wasn't even a proposal. That's what I think is so funny. Everybody made it sound like it was a very big event, but it was more like a conversation, like, hey, I think we should have more kids. If we're going to do that, we should get married.
Oh, wow.
And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, like what? Like this is what I've wanted for forever. And you go on a trip and come back and now it's like everything that we had always broken up for, right? So I felt like it was our fairy tale coming true.
Oh, that's sad.
I know, right?
And we can paint whatever happened in Panama happened, but regardless what happened, there's a trauma there and there's a reflection of your life when he's probably going through all this. And it's like, who is this person and what I want? And wait a minute, I want to be with Kristin. I could see that happening. And I think people are judging the whole, you got married right after, but you guys have been on and off. So for you to get married that quickly kind of makes sense since you've only been breaking up every time because you wanted to get married.
Yeah. And the funny thing is we were going to get married in Cabo San Lucas, 4th of July weekend. We weren't going to do it the next day. What happened is I went home to my family and I'm trying on wedding dresses and my sisters are like, oh my gosh, if Brian comes up here, you guys can get married this weekend. They figured it all out because they were thinking instead of doing justice of the peace, which is what you'd have to do if we had a wedding in Mexico, we would be with family. So it wasn't even his idea to do it that quick. But I just remember I had a gut feeling and it was really fast for me because I hadn't been with him for over 2 years. So it's like, yes, we loved each other. We always loved each other, but it's also fast.
Right.
I should have listened to my gut. And yes, you're right. They reflect. And he was like, I did everything wrong and I just wanted to make something right. And it's hard for people, I think, to understand that. A lot of people don't always understand how that would feel if you just did the worst thing in your life and you're just, I mean, horrible, right?
Yeah, horrible. So obviously you're living your fairy tale and you're like, this is amazing. I have the man, I have the baby, I'm going to have another baby. This is great. Was he acting different than normal?
Absolutely, yes. He was acting so weird. I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was. And he's a Marine. They can sleep anywhere.
Yeah.
And this dude couldn't sleep at all. He would be up all night long. Something I had never seen him ever do. And I was with him when he came home from Iraq.
Oh, wow.
So I had been with him on military deployments. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? Yeah. I didn't know if it had something to do with when people get out of the military, it's a very hard transition for them too, and they go through a lot of changes. So I didn't know if it was that. I didn't know if he had regret about marrying me so quick. I didn't know what was wrong, and he was very disconnected from me emotionally. Like, he was so silent, he wouldn't eat. Oh, wow. It was just, he was so off. And that's why I'm like, he wasn't living his best life doing golf like they showed him, and I understand why they need to do that. But he was grieving. I didn't know he was grieving, and I didn't know what was wrong.
And he couldn't tell you?
No. And he was freaked out to tell, like, imagine not being able to tell anybody. And he knew enough, and that's what people don't understand. But in my husband's line of work, even, he had that where you can't tell people what you're doing when you're in the military. So it's very abnormal to other people, but for us, it's very normal, where there's things that you can't share with the other person because you're not allowed to. in his case, he was doing this to absolutely protect me. He knew it would be a massive liability. So
Wow. And I feel like as a newlywed, you were probably freaking out. Like, is it me?
yeah, I had no idea what was wrong. And I was like, is he not attracted to me? We hadn't been dating for 2 years.
Yeah.
So I didn't know if he had changed or what.
Wow. And I assumed because he was in the Marines, he must have done and seen so much in his military career that I wouldn't have expected that would have happened with him. So it's interesting.
It's more, don't plan to do this to someone that you, frankly, he loved her.
Yeah.
That's what I think is the saddest thing, is that it's just so sad because it was a broken relationship, right? It was a very unhealthy relationship.
Yeah.
But he would never plan or have this in him to do something like this, or that you would have assumed. And it was just so tragic.
Yeah.
He was disgusted with himself, you know?
Of course. And keeping it all inside, it must have been destroying him from the inside. How soon after you guys were married did investigators come around?
I was at a professional event, and it was like hundreds of women. And I was sitting in the second row, and I got called out. Like, someone came to get me because they said the FBI is here to talk to you. And I'm like, oh, they're doing someone's background check or something. I didn't even think a whole lot of it, to be honest. I was like, oh, that's weird that they're coming here. And then when they started asking me about my husband, I was like, oh my gosh, what did he do? And I'm thinking, because he had told me he went down there with a bunch of Marines. I'm like, the Marines probably thought it was really funny and went to the embassy and took down the Panamanian flag and put up the American flag or the Marine Corps flag.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm thinking happened, because that's like what the Marines would do.
Yeah.
Right? They would do something stupid like that when they're drunk.
Yeah.
And then when they start telling me that he was there with a woman he was dating, that's the first time I found out. I didn't know she existed. And I could tell they were very concerned for my safety. And I was like, I am not worried at all. This guy is so far from, if you know my husband, and that's why people who know him are like, this is so out of character, because he's one of the most calm people. But I've never been down there in what they were going through either.
Right.
So I've never seen that. But it was crazy because I was just like, what? I am not concerned in the least. He's never been violent. He's never been someone who's lost his cool at all. He's actually very known for being temperate. And that's why it was just very surreal. And they are very concerned. I could tell, but I was just like, you guys, I also understand that people have general perceptions of what a Marine would be like. Yeah. That's what I was like, you're just stereotyping him, but you also have to look at who he is. And that's what I was thinking.
So you thought it was all this miscommunication, misunderstanding.
Yeah. And I was just like, are you joking? He'd never do. I wasn't worried. Wow. And they just had said she was missing. I didn't know. And I was like, okay, yeah, he wouldn't tell me he was dating her because we weren't together. And we never talked about that stuff. So the fact that he didn't tell me wouldn't have been out of character for him. But I still was like, you shouldn't marry me if you were just getting out of a relationship. That's how I felt later. And that's what I told him. I was mad about that. But I had no idea. Obviously, something had happened.
Did he know that the investigators were coming to see you? Had they come to him first?
They came to us at the same time, which was really fun for me professionally because it ruined my reputation so badly. You think about it, and they came to him when he was coming back from the gym at the house. But for me, it was very public. So it was very disappointing that they did that because they didn't need to do that. They could have done it when I was leaving the house or whatever. But I understand some of that is a tactic. They wanted me to leave him too. They were doing things so that I would leave him. But he was aware. And I actually think this is a saving grace. He sent me a text message and he's like, the FBI are talking to me. I just don't want you surprised. And I was like, they're here with me too. They told me you went there with a woman. So I called him out.
Oh, no.
Because he said, my friend's missing. And I said, yeah, I heard it was a girl. And that was at least confirmation to them. Everybody would know if they talked to our people that I didn't know who she was. And I didn't know he was dating anybody. I figured he was dating a bunch of women. I knew he was dating, but I didn't know who. So.
Oh my gosh, I would have been horrified if they pulled me out of that. Is just mean, because you would think that they would see you at that point as a victim or a potential future victim.
Yeah, I understand they have to figure out if I knew anything.
Yeah.
but they could have done it in a discreet way. It didn't have to be so public, right? And that's where I'm saying, like, there was so much stuff done to me, and they did that to my dad later too. They went to my dad's place of work. Like, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
As far as I'm aware, I don't know if they did that to anyone else, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm. And that was the start of this investigation. How did that go?
Well, I didn't know anything else besides what they told me, because my husband, once again, people think he could have told me, but it would have been terrible if I would have known something. I'm very grateful I didn't have any insight into what happened, because it just left me out of it. So we got a lawyer right away, and the lawyer's like, don't talk to her at all. Mm-hmm. And we just started having media come to our house, and they were peering in the window. It was very harassing.
Yeah.
And people will say, they tried to talk to you, and you're like, yeah, aggressively, while I'm with my daughter, taking her from the park and trying to go in my house, and there's people following you. They're not trying to sit down and have a conversation with you. They're trying to ambush you. And it's incredibly frightening as a woman too. I can't imagine as a man it's much better, but it feels very frightening. You feel very unsafe. They're taking pictures of you. They're taking pictures of your car, your home, talking to your neighbors. You feel very vulnerable and very frightened for your safety because of the way that things were portrayed as well, too. It was very frightening as a mom with a young child.
Yeah. I saw some footage of them knocking on your door and stuff. I'm like, this is horrific. And you never think about it really when you're watching these shows or TVs or whatever. And then you meet someone who's actually gone through it and you're like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. Why do we allow people to do that? That's not okay.
I know. The worst was, like, I'd be putting my daughter to bed. I'd give her a bath, put her to bed, and turn off the lights. And as soon as I turned off the lights, they would come knock on the door. And it's like, you think I want to talk to you now? Now that my daughter's in bed?
That's crazy.
It was so stressful. I had so much trauma from that.
Yeah.
I did not want to be drug into this. I later tried to make it part of a love triangle, which it wasn't. I just did not want to be involved.
Yeah. What about your family and friends?
I will just say a lot of people left. As soon as the news hit, even just during the investigation, a lot of people, like people I'd known for a very long time, were just like, I can't handle this.
Wow.
And I 1000% do not blame them. I don't blame them because it was very surreal to be part of it. And the funny thing is to me is I do have friends who are more high profile, and they were actually the ones that said, I don't care if they talk about me, I got your back.
Wow.
It's very interesting because people get into self-preservation. They just do, because they feel like then they're going to be targeted. And there's actually good reason for that, because the FBI did that to some of my husband's friends. People at the end of the day are caring about themselves. And I totally understand that. I don't harbor any resentment towards people for that, because people don't know what they'll do unless they're in that situation.
Yeah.
And I never thought I was going to be in this situation ever.
Right. No, nobody would.
But yeah, I had a very small circle around me, and they were very supportive. And I don't know about everyone else, but I don't think people would have said anything to me about it to my face, because it was clear, obviously, that I was with him, that I was going to be staying with him. So at that time, I think everybody, especially until they plead guilty, people treat you a little bit like, okay, maybe there's a chance. But then once they plead guilty, it's like game over, and people are like done with you.
I'm out. I'm sitting here listening to you and trying to picture what it was like and being in that moment. I don't know how you got through it, because if I had friends leaving me, could not handle losing so many friends, and you have a young family, and your husband's just lied to you about all this stuff to protect you or not, it still happened. And then you're getting all this pressure from media, you're being exposed at corporate events. That's a lot for you to carry. How did you navigate being in the home during this time?
I really thought my life was over.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I'm going to ever come back from this. And I know that's what most people felt as well. I think most people fully expected me to fall off the face of the earth. But to be honest, I think having children was one of the biggest blessings to me in the world. They love you so much. They love you so unconditionally when they're young. When you are dealing with so much hate and you're having so much pain, having these little beings that were absolutely in love with me, and I was their world, and my husband was their world. It was like our family was the biggest safe haven, and I really genuinely feel like they were the biggest blessing to have, because it gave me a purpose to keep on when I felt like I didn't have any will to do this. at the end of the day, my husband and I are grown people and we can handle it. Like, we're really strong people, but it's our kids, right? And that's your little family. And I remember my husband saying that what matters most is this family. And I felt like we had a ring of fire around our little family. And we had so much joy when the four of us were together. It was the biggest saving grace. I feel blessed that I had them because they were so happy and they didn't know what was going on. And I'm so grateful for that, because I would have hated to have navigated them and their feelings during this as well as my own. That would have been really hard.
Right. Do you remember when he decided to plead guilty?
Yeah, I do, because I got a call from his lawyer to come in, because I had told him, I said, don't tell me anything on the phone you don't want anybody to know, because I figured people could have been listening to my phone because they were opening our mail and stuff. So I knew that there was a lot of surveillance going on. And so basically they came in and told me he was pleading guilty. And I was like, what? Because up until that point, I had totally believed he was innocent. And it's really easy for everyone who isn't part of the process to be like, how did you not know? People don't see all the discovery. They don't see all the evidence.
Yeah.
They only see what is given out. So there was like a lot of information that I had. So I genuinely thought, I mean, I knew there was a possibility, but I think I didn't want to also accept it.
Right.
And so I was very much holding on to, there's a lot of evidence that shows he's innocent, called confirmation bias. It's what we do.
Yeah.
That's what you do when you're not healthy and you're very stressed and you just want to believe the best.
Yeah.
So it was hard.
So he wasn't around you when you found out?
No.
He was in custody?
I mean, we couldn't talk about it for a very long time. So I found out from his lawyer, and I kind of went into a state of shock. It was just very much disbelief. And I heard the words, but my brain was almost trying to disprove what I heard. And when I realized it was real, it just broke my heart. It was so heartbreaking to know someone that you loved, someone I had really believed in, someone who I had fought for, right, could do something so horrible. And it was so sad.
Yeah.
It was so sad on so many levels.
And your whole future is about to look very different than you thought on your wedding day.
Yep.
Wow. Talk about pressure and changes and stuff. So up until the point that he decided to plead guilty, like you were saying, you were hoping that he was innocent and you thought he was. So was there a level of anger that you started to experience after the guilt?
I would say it was later, though, because when you're in a state of shock, the grief cycle a little bit where you have different emotions, because I knew I couldn't tell him how I felt, because I knew they could play that in court. I very much bottled everything up, which was not a healthy thing to do, but I felt like it was necessary in the environment that we were in. I almost unleashed on other people more than I did on him initially. And then once court was done, then I could like totally let him have it. And I mean, it was like that for a very long time, like for years. It took us a lot to go through it all.
Really?
I was pissed. Like, why would you marry me after you did this? Why would you have another child with me? I was very angry. And I had wanted to leave. At one point, I was very much like, I am not staying. Like, I will go through this, but I do not want to stay. Oh, yeah. I was so pissed. And I think it's normal.
Yeah.
Right? I think it would be abnormal if I didn't think about it or even really want to do that. And then it was like, we just also went through so much growth together. So it's like, I would feel that way. And then I'd be like, I really love him. And this is where my faith comes in. And I really believed that the Lord was like, tell him you love him unconditionally. And I was like, but I don't. I'm so angry at him. And I started saying, I love you unconditionally. And I really feel like the world doesn't do that. And I totally understand how weird it looks to be loving someone who did something very wrong. But it was very much of a season of growth for us both, where it's just really hard when you're in it for the long game. Then you change what you're willing to go through, so to speak. Like when I finally made the decision of, okay, I'm going to stay with you. Then I was like, I will work on this. We will continue to get through this. And I did a lot of personal healing stuff with counselors and things like that. We couldn't do it together until much later. But
oh, you were able to. Yeah, I was wondering, through this whole process, are you going to see a therapist? Are you getting professional help?
oh, I still do.
Okay,
I'm
good.
very into that.
Me
Like
too.
our kids do, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we actually really would like to. The challenges of doing it with someone who's incarcerated is very hard. We would like to have more of an opportunity to do that together.
Yeah.
Have that where at the prisons you could have family therapy, because especially kids need that with their parents too. They go through a lot of trauma with everything. And I think obviously the individuals themselves who go through things also need to do it themselves.
Yeah.
And so it would be really great if we could get more counseling or counselors who were well-versed in this kind of stuff to work with families in this environment.
Yeah, for sure. And your kids grew up with him incarcerated.
Yeah.
So they probably don't remember or have many memories of him being at home with you guys and what that was like.
Right. They have pictures and memories for the most part of that, or stories we've shared.
So sad.
It is. It's like that. But as a parent, the whole thing breaks your heart.
Yeah.
It breaks your heart that this impacts so many people. It impacts the victim's family. It impacts our family. It impacts the kids. It impacts people that you just don't realize who were associated. That's the saddest thing with everything is you never realize how much one thing you do can be spread to hurt so many people.
And then he has to process it because not only has this whole thing, like you said, happened and affected all these people, his actions, regardless of the circumstances, cause this ripple effect, and his own children have to suffer it because of him. And it's so sad. So he has to go through that whole process of forgiving himself for that. And sounds like
which
a lot.
Is important. That's actually really an important thing for them to understand the gravity of what they did.
Yeah.
That's what people don't know. And that's what they don't see is what he has worked through, because it's a big, you have to forgive yourself. I've had to forgive myself too. I've had to forgive myself for doing this to my kids.
Right.
Because if I had been in a healthy mind space, would I have gotten married so quick? There's so many things that could change. And yes, we're happy now, but you can play this what if game all the time. And there's certain things in life you just don't change, you know? And so you really have to learn to forgive yourself and then try to do the best with what you have. Yeah. Which is what we've tried to do.
And the reality, like when you bring up the loving unconditionally thing, I think that's so interesting because my husband and I have this conversation all the time because he's like, you don't love me unconditionally. And I'm like, you're right. Like if you go and do something stupid again, if we manage to get you out of this life sentence and you go do something stupid, I don't know that I would stay again for this. No. And he's like, but I would love you unconditionally and all this stuff. And you do get married and you do make vows through thick and thin, and you do make a promise to God that you will stay with this person and this is the person you chose. But so many of us don't actually understand the reality of it and what could happen.
But what I would say is loving someone unconditionally doesn't also mean you stay. If my husband was a violent person that I had to be concerned about our safety, I would not be with him. It's like unconditional love doesn't give them the blanket get out of jail free card, so to speak, where they get to do whatever they want because, I love you unconditionally. There's still consequences. And so the biggest thing is when you both love one another, you really, and this is where you can see that they change, is when it's like my husband absolutely loves me more than he loves himself, which when we were dating, I mean, he loved me, but he also loved himself a lot more, you know, and you think about what people do when you love the other person, you're going to honor them and you're going to respect them and you're going to take care of their heart. And that's where it's very important for the heart change.
How did you do that? Did you initially stick around for the kids? What was your initial process of deciding whether you were going to stay or not?
It was initially for the kids. But we went through this court thing for 3 years, and it was intense. And when they're throwing out the death penalty, and I'm like, my husband, you want to kill him.
Wow.
And people are at court, and they're talking about, I hope they kill your husband. I hope they fry him to my face. Like, it was so sad to me when I'm like, nobody sees who he is. They think he's this evil monster, in which I don't blame people because that's all they know. But I see him and it's like, he's my husband.
Yeah.
He's my children's father. And I see the way he is with our kids and I see the way he is with me. And if he didn't love me, I wouldn't have made it this long. He's very loving to me.
Right.
And he's incredibly loving to our children.
Yeah.
So if he was this psycho that was just a horrible person, first of all the women wouldn't have been throwing themselves at him who were.
Mm-hmm.
But I wouldn't be waiting around for someone like that who didn't have a good heart.
Yeah.
And so that's what I think is the saddest thing, is when you know someone and you've lived a life that hasn't been criminal, like, what did you do? Like, what was going on that this happened? You know, and that's what it's like. It's just when people don't know someone, it's very easy to just be like, cut and dry, you're psycho, that's why I did it.
Yeah.
But it's like when you actually know someone, you've known them for a decade.
Yeah.
You've seen them in good times and bad, when they came back from Iraq, from other deployments, and they were never emotionally unstable, like not at all. Like, what the heck was going on? So it was very complex.
Yeah.
It's very difficult.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it forces you to look at this person and give them that benefit because you know the histories. And it forces you into this situation where you're like, I have to look at it and I have to give him that chance. But I also think that if he wasn't willing to work through it with you, I think that's a telltale sign too, was that he had a lot of shit to get through. And if he wasn't going to work on that, and we could open the freaking door to rehabilitation and what it is and what it looks like and how it's proven and all that. But at the end of the day, he is working on rehabilitating himself. And part of that is working with you on your relationship with the kids and making sure that he's doing his part.
Yeah. And he had to do this himself. Like, I couldn't do it for him. Our marriage would not have survived had he not done his own walk of going back, even when he was a teenager, and looking at different choices he made in life that weren't criminal, but like, when did you start getting selfish? When did you start looking at those smaller red flags, you could say? And that's the thing. That's why I'm like, I know people hate it when I say I'm so proud of him, but I really am.
Yeah.
It takes a very humble person to peel back the onion, especially for a man. I think it's really hard for them to be vulnerable like that and to pull back the onion, peel back the layers of their heart, so to speak, and be like, where did I go wrong here? Where did I go wrong here? And really analyze it. He needed to do that so that we could have a marriage that was good. And I mean, I had to fix myself too. That's what people don't understand, is like, just because I didn't do anything criminally wrong, right? I don't have that, but it doesn't mean that I'm a perfect human being. We all have things we need to work on. I needed to be healthy emotionally. I had a lot of my own stuff I had to work through. We both had to do that individually first.
Yeah.
And then I felt like we could work on our marriage, because if we had been two broken people, we wouldn't be where we are now. And I don't pretend like we're perfect all the time, because like my husband talks about this. When he comes home, we're going to have a counselor. He was like, I want us to have marriage counseling as backup. We want to have people holding us accountable to always do the best. Our kids deserve it. Our marriage deserves it. We deserve it.
I agree completely with everything that you're saying.
Hey, it's AJ from More Than an Inmate's Girlfriend podcast. Our new More Than an Inmate's gift catalog is out, and it's free for a limited time to send to your loved one. We know that just because someone is incarcerated doesn't mean they don't want to make their person feel special, but sometimes they don't have a way to do it. That's what this catalog is for. Visit morethananinmatesgirlfriend.com and enter the code JANDAJ. That's JAEANDAJ to send the catalog today. Because being incarcerated doesn't mean they stop wanting to show effort. Sometimes they just need help doing it.
The kids, and I don't want to go into detail because it's their story.
Yeah.
But has the adjustment been relatively smooth throughout the process since they were so young when it happened?
Yeah, I want to say in some ways that was maybe easier, but it still wasn't.
Yeah.
My husband was a stay-at-home dad, and our daughter was at home with him all the time. So when he left, she regressed. And it's so sad to me because I think about it now and I talk to her about this because I apologize to my kids all the time. I was not a perfect parent at all.
Yeah.
I remember her crying all the time. and I couldn't handle it because I was going through so much and I was so frustrated with her. But she didn't have the words to say what was going on in her heart. She knew her dad was gone. And it grieves me that I was in such a bad spot to not always see that they were suffering or they were grieving in their own way. But we did have a tremendous amount of love when we were together as a family. And that was just such a blessing. For 3 years, and they grew up seeing their dad once or twice a week.
Right.
We had these family moments, and it was the most beautiful time together. And they have a very good relationship with their father. They know him, and he knows them, and it's because we've done the work.
Yeah.
But it's not been without consequence.
Right. I watched something recently, and I don't know how recently you had posted it, but you talked about having like phrases for the kids if people ask them about their dad or the situation or whatever. And I thought that was really great. Can you just walk through that whole situation of what you taught them?
Yeah, it was actually something that I had heard from a counselor because I used to get people who would ask me questions, and they would just have a phrase that you say to someone to shut it down. So what I taught them is if you have someone at school who asks you about your dad or says, I saw something online about your dad or something like that, I just said, essentially, you don't owe anybody anything. Because the biggest thing is these kids did nothing. It is not their job to defend the indefensible.
Yeah.
Nobody is trying to defend what my husband did. We all think it was wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of times I think people want to get you to defend them, or it comes across as defensive when you explain what was going on. That's why I'm like, it's just easier not to. But for them, I was just like, hey, if someone asks you about your dad, you can just say that's family business, or you could just say that's not appropriate to be talking to me about it here, depending on what it was. But they deserve the privacy. Just because it's in the news doesn't mean it's everybody's business.
Yeah.
That's how I always felt. Just because it's in the news doesn't mean I need to tell you about it or that it's open for public debate. There's still something called like privacy.
Yeah, for sure. And when I heard you say that, I was like, that makes so much sense. It might come up every now and then. So for them to be prepared like that, I think that's super smart. How did forgiveness play a part? And how did you stick to your faith when like this is a crazy situation?
I knew if I didn't forgive that I would get very bitter. And I hate to say this, but you see bitter people walking around this world all the time who are still talking about their ex-husband, what he did to them and how that shaped them. And it's like, move on, forgive them and move on. They're not even in your life anymore. But it's like people still ruminate over it. I was just so angry at everyone. I felt used, abused, and traumatized by so many people. It wasn't even just my husband that I had to forgive. It was the prosecutors. It was the FBI. It was everybody involved. It was the news media, right? I felt like I was completely abused by people. And talked about, and I was brought into a situation that I wasn't even part of. I didn't even know any of them. So I was very angry at a lot of people, and to include myself. And I was mad at myself, like, why didn't you know that he was guilty? So this is where I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive my husband, and I had to forgive a whole lot of other people. And I think for me, it's harder to forgive people that don't love you and don't care that they harmed you than it is people that do love you and do care. Does that make sense? So that for me was almost harder. And I walk through it all the time. If I feel something, like a twitch of something, I know that there's unforgiveness that I need to deal with. And for me, the other thing that really helped for people that I felt like just didn't care. My husband's actually incredibly empathetic, and he's the one that does this all the time, which I think is funny because people have no idea how much he cares. But he'd be like, you really need to look through other people's perspectives of this and try to see the situation through their eyes. And it helps you forgive because you see where they're coming from. And you're like, okay, you're hurting or you're doing this, you're angry, so that's why you lashed out. And it's hard to not take it personal. It's hard when it's doing a lot of damage to you. And very hurtful. But forgiveness is freedom. It really is. It allows you to move on so that those feelings, those things that happened don't hold on to you. So I don't have anger, and I can legitimately say this right now. I don't wish any harm to anybody who even did something wrong to me. I just want everybody to be healed, and I want all of us to live our lives in ways where we are trying to help this country go forward and help improve criminal justice reform. I don't want to be anybody's enemy. I only want to be people's advocates, and I only want to be championing people who don't have a voice. I don't have a desire to fight anybody.
The growth that you probably had to experience to get there, but anybody who's been through something, like you said, that just festers inside of you, where you feel like you've been wronged, and anybody who's been through that and then has learned to forgive that so they can move on, it is addicting to be able to do that. And I feel that way too. Being able to forgive people that have wronged me has been such a blessing, just like you said. And I used to struggle with all the backlash that I would get online and stuff with my husband. And I'll tell you something. I once posted something on Reddit and I got a few comments that were so bad. And I was like, I'm never opening that freaking thread ever again. I told my husband, like, we're done. I'm never seeing it. And he was like, you need to know what people are saying so that we can counter it and learn from it and move on from it, you know? And I was like, no, I'm not opening that thread. I cannot even look at the Reddit button right now. It's over. But then now I get thousands of comments that are negative, or like he should die in there and all this stuff. And I'm just like, person who is a stranger on the internet, I haven't gotten to you yet. I haven't been able to change your mind yet, but one day I hope I can. And in the meantime, I have to respect that, and that it's not personal, but it really is a journey to get through that experience.
It is. And people are messy. That's what people don't realize. The world is so messy, and you have hurt people that enjoy seeing other people's pain. And I understand true crime phenomenon is very of interest to people, but I'm like, you're glorifying and talking all about very graphic things. And how is that healthy? You're ruminating over a murder. Like, that is so unhealthy as human beings, to be so focused and so fixated on that. And you're throwing rocks at the person who did it, but you're enjoying it and you're making documentaries on it. Like, that's not healthy. Healthy people don't do that.
And normalizing it almost.
And that's where I'm like, you can't change everybody's opinion.
No.
But if you reach one person, like, I have that all the time. I had someone who wrote me and said, I was going to kill myself, and I read your things, and you gave me hope because I felt like someone saw me. And I told my husband, because I had told him, I was like, sometimes I'm like, is it even making a difference? Like, we're only doing this because we want to help people who don't know what to do. And I was like, we saved a life. And it just was like, this is worth it. Because sometimes all the hate, we're human beings, right? It's not fun. But when you save someone and you see this is helping them, that's what you have to keep in mind. Focus on the signal and not the noise. And so the signal is the people who need to hear your message and need to have hope and need to know what it is to go through what we're going through, and to know that they can get through it. And the noise is all the people that are just interested in stirring up drama. Right.
I think the other thing to keep in mind also, when you feel like you're not making a difference, I worked in the food industry previously, and the quote was always 96% of people won't complain about a product. They just won't repurchase it. They're not going to complain. They're just not going to buy it again. And the same thing with social media, I find, is that 96% of the people are going to be absorbing your content, but they're not going to make comments, and they're not going to put likes, and they're just watching. They're just watchers. And you'll never know that impact on those people. I was talking to a public defender a couple months ago, and I was telling him about stuff, and he was like, oh, I know. I've seen your husband's social media. And I'm like, what? And then someone else said, I saw your husband's social media. We've never seen these people, knew that these people were paying attention at all. And here they are regularly scoping it to keep up and see what he's up to and see what he's doing and see what he's sharing. But we would have no idea. So you really don't even understand the impact that you're having in a positive way, because a lot of people will just watch it and need it, but they won't say it publicly.
Yeah. And people don't realize what an amazing marriage we do have and what I get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
He is my biggest champion. And he's told me, even if you're just doing it because you feel like the Lord told you to, he's like, that's enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, boom, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I literally got that email from someone, and it was encouragement.
Mm-hmm.
And I did tell that person, you really encouraged my spirit to keep going. I don't give up very easy, but it's like, I also have kids and I have a job and I have a home. I'm doing everything. So I don't have a lot to always give.
Yeah.
And so I have to be judicial with my time.
I remember I told you this already, but when I first found your content, I was like, I looked up the case. I was like, what is this woman? Like, is she a little crazy? This is a lot. He did a lot of horrific things. And then you watch your content more and more and you are engaging. So then you listen to you more and more and you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's more to that. With time, you learn and you start questioning. And that's the experience that I had with your social media, is that you make people start questioning, like, wait a minute. So at first they might be like, this woman's crazy. But the more you watch your content, you're like, wait a minute, something ain't adding up.
Yeah, that's what I get a lot is, she's delusional. And I'm like, honey, you have no idea what I know.
Yeah,
you don't know everything I know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your faith played a huge part.
Yeah.
How did you keep it? Did you question it? I don't know if I would be believing in God this whole time.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that's very normal to be like, are you listening to me? I'm crying out to you.
Yeah.
I've always known God, but when you are in the darkest place in the world where everybody's abandoned you, and prison is a great place to meet God. It really is too. You are isolated from the world. You have nothing. You have no hope. And it's like the only thing that gives you hope is the words that are in the Bible. And it was the only thing, because there is nothing a human being can tell you when your husband is facing extradition, when they're facing first-degree murder. This is the United States government. They are the most powerful government.
Yeah.
We are nobody. It was sad, too, because we both love our country, so somewhere you never think you're going to be. And it's almost like this weird paradox of being so sad that your country's coming after your husband.
Yeah.
But it was terrifying. It was absolutely terrifying. And the only thing that gave me hope was I literally read the Bible and things in the Bible and seeing David. And David was so inspirational to me because I could really put myself in their situation. He was in a cave, kind of like a cell, where people were hunting for him. And it felt like we were being hunted. And I genuinely thought my husband was innocent. And look what he did. He murdered Bathsheba's husband and covered it up. And there was major consequence to that. But the thing that I love about David is that what happened is once he got called out for what he did, for the murder and covering up, you don't see him the rest of the time in the Bible saying, I'm such a terrible person. Right. How could I ever? He had massive consequence. His son tried to kill him. Like he was living in a cave. His wives got taken. He went through bad stuff.
Yeah.
But you don't see him shaming himself the rest of his life. You don't see him saying, like, how could I have ever done that? And it doesn't mean that you don't hold yourself accountable, because obviously that's the most important thing. But it's like in this world, and this is why I'm such a big person about not letting the shame of what my husband did impact me, because I didn't do this. And I can love him and not love what he did. Right. Absolutely. You can do that. I love my children, and sometimes I don't love what they do.
Yeah.
But I don't stop loving them. Right. And it doesn't mean also that you don't set up healthy boundaries if you need a healthy boundary there too. But where I'm going is that was just so inspirational to me, because I didn't feel like anyone could connect with me, but literally these people in the Bible.
Wow.
Like, because that's how I felt. I felt like we were hunted, like Daniel in the lion's den, and he's put in this fiery furnace. It's like, do you know what it feels like having two nations, Panama and the United States government, coming after your family?
No.
And you don't have the means? Like, we have nothing. It is by the grace of God that my family is still here. It is by the grace of God.
Did you always have that faith, or did it grow throughout this experience?
I grew up Christian.
Okay.
But I will tell you, I always felt like I was like a Sunday Christian. I say that all the time. Like when my husband and I were dating, we were doing a lot of things that were not what someone who goes to church every day is supposed to be doing. So I would pick and choose what I wanted to do. I'll apply that one, but I'm not going to apply that one.
Right.
You know, that's how I lived my life. So I knew who God was. And that's why I'm like, people can be a Christian and still do really bad things. Yes. They absolutely can.
Uh-huh.
But this experience to me completely sold me out for the Lord. I was like, I just want to be like with you, because I don't want to do anything not in alignment with the Lord, because I've seen what that leads to. I've seen what people who live for themselves, what happens. And my husband is too. That's why our marriage is so good. And he's incarcerated. But compared to where it was when he was home, we weren't in a good spot. So it's hard to explain, but our faith has 1,000% grown. And I try not to be like a Bible thumper, but I genuinely don't know how people get through these things without faith in something than themselves, because God is the only thing that I can trust, if that makes sense.
That totally makes sense. And they say that when you're at your worst is when you turn to religion, but sometimes you have to go through the worst things to find it, right?
Yeah.
You don't look for it when everything's going good.
And the other big thing on that, though, too, is then people might have their life get easier. And then they're like, okay, now I can leave religion because I don't need God. I only need him when it's really bad. But when you actually have a relationship with the Lord, kind of like with my husband, when you actually love them more than you love yourself, you want to honor them and you want to do what's right.
Yeah.
So that's how you know that you have a good, healthy relationship, because it's about the other person. It's not about yourself.
Misconceptions. What would you say are some of the biggest ones? Because the wedding thing would have really bothered me. Is there any other misconceptions that people have said about you that really bother you?
Yeah, I think it's more the character things. I know the storyline got really wrong, but it's okay. So there's probably three things. The first is that I'm doing this for sympathy or attention. I am well aware that I am on the wrong side of what the world sees as deserving any sort of sympathy. And I am legitimately only sharing this because I want to help other people. And so if you don't know me personally, I can understand why people are like, she's trying to get attention. But this is so far from what I was comfortable doing. I am only doing this because I feel called to do it, not because I think it's a fun thing. It's been hard. It's been hard. Obviously, everybody hasn't been loving to me. I've had more hate than I've had love. But I do appreciate the people that are kind to me very much, and that see that I'm doing it for the right reasons. But I think if you don't know me and you just assume, oh, she's trying to get attention, and it's like, no, I'm absolutely not. Like, this is not what I want to have attention on, you know?
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that I don't have empathy for Yvonne or her family. I've done my very absolute best to navigate this situation, and I don't think I've done everything perfectly at all, but I've really tried to honor them all by not speaking about the crime itself. And I'm trying to show respect to them. And I understand that even me talking about my husband is going to be upsetting and not well received, but I'm legitimately only doing this because I'm trying to help other people. And I think that we are all in this world together, and we want to see healing for everybody. We don't want the world going through pain and not knowing that you can be healed and you can have still the best life as possible. And then the last thing is, I think that people think that some people have this misperception that I think what my husband did wasn't a big deal. All of us have different life experiences. And I have personally seen many people who have made horrible choices in very stressful circumstances, even where lives have been lost. And so I understand that good people can do bad things. And it doesn't mean that I think it's okay. It's mean I just have had a different life experience where I have seen this happen. And most people, I don't think, have had life or death circumstances where they've had to grapple with these things. But those who have, they actually very much do understand. And when I've shared with them the story, they absolutely get it. It doesn't mean anybody thinks it's right. They just understand.
I think it's important because I've never seen you publicly downplay the horrific act that happened or the situation and the fact that a life was ended, but you're fighting an uphill battle to try and get to as many people as you can in a positive way.
Yeah.
But if you could help prevent this from happening to someone else, you need to share the story, right?
Yeah.
So we know why you went public on social media, but you obviously pick and choose what you keep private and what you share publicly. How do you pick and how are you navigating that?
Yeah, so we pretty much keep private things between our family. If they involve someone close to us who could be hurt by them, that hasn't been made public. Just because you go public doesn't mean that you share everything, like every bad thing you've ever done in your life. And especially on social media, we feel that anything we say, our kids can listen to later. And we want to be very cognizant about not having this story cause them more harm.
Right.
So we do try to be very aware of how this will impact our children as well as family and those harmed. And so those are some of the litmus tests of, is this appropriate to be sharing or not? And what we fully anticipate doing when my husband comes home, because we really want to help people with marriages and families who are going through it, know that you can have hope, is that we will share more details in those private things where it's not people that are just trying to hear the dirt, but people that are actually going through it and need to be encouraged and need to know, hey, they've gone through that too, and look what they got through. If they did it, we can do it. Yeah. So we try to use wisdom and discernment about who we share and what we share with.
That's fair. Watching shows like 48 Hours about your husband's case, and it's interesting to me this weekend, actually, my girlfriend was just watching a TV show and I heard a few things and I was like, wait a minute. And then I go and sit down and it was some kind of true crime thing. And it goes to break. And then I'm asking her these questions about what I thought I heard. And it turned out that the case that was on the TV was a good friend of mine that I've known now for a couple of years that I met through this whole thing. It was her boyfriend's case on the TV. And I was like, oh my gosh. So then I texted her right away and she knew what it was. And she was like, we're suing them. And I knew the details of the case because I talked to her so much about it. And I'm like, this makes him out to be horrible. And she was like, yeah, I know, right? And she's like, you've read the documents, you know the situation. I'm like, yeah. And it reminded me of you so much because I was like, oh, I'm about to interview someone who's probably been through the same thing when it comes to 48 Hours. And obviously I've now had a chance to watch it and it's crazy. But even just watching your face and your pictures and people knocking on your house door, like, how did you feel watching that?
To be honest, I knew the truth and I'd seen everything. So for me, I'm going to say it was very hurtful when it's your family, right? And you're like, how do I ever come back from this? Because it was so slanderous. Yeah. And I always say this, and I know people think I'm over-exaggerating, but it's literally propaganda when you're providing half-truths and some things that are blatantly lies. And there is some truth in it. But it's like they're doing it in a way so that it empowers people to hate you and it villainizes you instead of saying actually the truth. And so on a personal note, it was gut-wrenching to watch my husband be like portrayed that way. Yeah. And even me, I was like, I looked like a snob. But and what people don't understand is when you have kids, you look through everything of the lens of my kids are going to have to see this. Yeah. And I'm going to have to explain this to them and their friends, and they're going to have to deal with it. That's literally how we look at it. On an intellectual note, I was really disgusted with the media and how much they did not show accuracy and how they didn't try to be objective in the least, it seemed, but they were really just regurgitating what the prosecutors said. And I knew that there was a relationship with the prosecutors because I had seen them. They were notified that my husband was being arrested when it was a sealed case. So someone let them know in the New York office to be to San Diego. Wow. When it's a sealed case, they're not supposed to tell anyone. So there was a relationship there, right? Yeah. They're giving them information so they can be there and all that stuff. So they were helping share that side. And I understand when your husband is the one who's the defendant, you're not going to be light. Well, I understand that.
Yeah.
But I expected them to at least tell the story more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
And this sounds really bad, but I knew some of the people being interviewed and I knew some of the backstory. And I was like, this is so fake.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it was just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was disappointing to me on an ethical level, to a degree where you're just like, if I did this, I would probably be sued. And when you're going through it, you're going through so much stuff that you don't have the capacity to sue everybody who does harm to you. You just don't.
Yeah.
You're dealing with the United States government and your husband's on death penalty.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't have time to sue 48 hours, right?
Yeah.
So on multiple levels, it was very hard, and they got to move on to the next show.
Yeah.
But we have to live with this, and this doesn't go anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't go off the air.
No.
We still have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And that's public perception.
Yeah. I think anybody who has had to deal with the media in some form or fashion learns quickly about the integrity of the media. And it makes you question everything afterwards. Because I had an experience when I was younger, and it really twisted my views of media when I could read across the screen blatant lies being told to scare people and scare the public when I was there and I knew what was going on, and that wasn't what happened. So it's crazy because it's just the media and the integrity and what they're allowed to say is just mind-boggling to me. It's crazy. Going back to your experiences with prison and reform, did you have experience before this with prison reform?
No, not.
Nothing.
No, I didn't.
So before this, you were like, people are sentenced to what they should be sentenced. They are incarcerated for what they should be. Yeah, same. I know. Isn't it crazy?
Yeah, I think I met one person who her husband was incarcerated when I worked somewhere in college.
Okay, yeah. Wow.
And I remember her talking and not having as much compassion as I would now if I had heard someone talking, right? Because that's the other thing that people don't understand is the amount of, like, I see it now. I'll see people and I'll be like, they're really hurting and they're struggling and they're lashing out in anger about the circumstances. And so, anyways. But yeah, I didn't see them as human beings, I would say. I didn't humanize them as much as I should have. And I most certainly didn't have any sort of sympathy, nor did I ever care to know about the lifestyle of families and all that kind of stuff.
Wow. So this was a completely...
Wow, that's changed.
Yeah. What a completely new experience and perspective you now have.
Yeah.
So your husband is in federal, which is different than people that are in state, and presents a lot more challenges for families. How has that affected your family more, and how did you navigate it?
Yeah, federal, in my opinion, seems almost worse.
Yeah.
Federal, you can get shipped all over the United States. If he had been charged in California, we know he'd stay in California. And he'd be local. And California also has just a lot more. They have family visits, and federal doesn't have any of that. You can barely touch. You can kiss and hug when you first see them and then when you leave. So it's very abnormal as a husband and wife. And we can deal, but I always think about our kids, right? And so I wish there was more opportunity for there to be normal relationships with the kids where they get to throw a ball with their dad or they get to not sit in a plastic chair across from one another.
Right.
You know, so I think, at least from my understanding, California has that opportunity to do those things. And I think that would be a lot healthier for family relationships to have it more normalized. But yeah, in a lot of ways, I wish he was in state. He's in a low facility and he was at a medium, but he's never been at a high and he's never been at Supermax.
Wow.
This is the thing that people don't understand is if he was really a threat, if they're really a scary person, they probably in the last 12 and a half years would have done something.
Yeah.
Because it's a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
It's not a healthy environment. They are tested and prodded all the time. And so to pretend for 12 and a half years, oh, and by the way, the rest of your life you lived where you never did anything, it was an incident. That's the saddest thing. But people just can't grapple a lot of times they always think people are all this or they're all that. Like they're very unable to understand that people are very difficult, messy.
Yeah, there's a lack of compassion. Are you working on trying to change laws? You mentioned a nonprofit.
Yeah, nonprofits actually can't really do policy type stuff.
Right.
But if I had my ability to be president for a day,
Yeah.
I would like to see, and like this is what I would do, this is not really a law, but I would like to see families have more flexibility in normal type visits.
Yeah.
And I would really like to see incarcerated people be able to get out earlier if they have been rehabilitated. Because we have over incarceration, and what is the point at that point? Like you're punishing to punish. And the intent is to reform, not to have someone waste away. And everybody gets really upset when I say that. And I'm not specifically talking about my husband. I'm talking about a lot of prisoners in general who are sitting in prison and don't need to be there at all. And what I would like to see is prosecutors and judges, if they have not ever been to prison, they should go for a day. I genuinely believe they should spend time in there so that they understood what it is that they're sentencing people to. And obviously, if they have an out date, they don't understand what is going on. But I genuinely think if people understood what they were doing and what they were condemning people to sometimes, I think they would not be able to sleep at night. I genuinely think there's people that have no idea. And this is where, as a Christian, it's like, I'm going to be accountable to God. And that's why I'm very careful about how I live my life and what I want. And I don't want anyone to be harmed. And there needs to be accountability, but I don't think prison is right for everyone. I think there needs to be other opportunities to reform people than just saying, you deserve to go to prison.
Yeah.
So
I think the hardest thing that me and my husband debate about a lot is how to prove rehabilitation. He says a lot of these guys, including himself, completely unlike your husband, have gone through the system since they were children. They've learned how to manipulate systems to get what they want. They know that if they had that opportunity to prove, quote unquote, rehabilitation, that they could do what they needed to do to show that, even if it wasn't sincere. So the big problem is, how do you show that, and how do you measure rehabilitation and ability? And that's where we always end up debating.
And that's where I feel like you really have to have people who have very good judge of character and discernment. Because that's one of my husband's pet peeves, when he sees people who they're in here and they're not even trying to change and they're going to go out and just do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then there's the people that genuinely are trying hard and they're working on themselves and improving. And that's why sometimes you almost have to have a peer review, be like, is this person legit? I'm not saying that that's the right way to go about this, but it's like you need people who have a good judge of character and can almost observe people in a fashion that they don't know that they're being observed, because what you do in private and how you treat people who can do nothing for you says everything about your character too. And so I think there is mechanisms. It's very difficult to judge people's character and to know, are you just showing me what you want to show me, or are you showing me who you actually are?
And then people make mistakes. Some people are going to get through the cracks, and that's where it becomes a problem. Like in my husband's case, the last time that they had given a commutation and resentenced someone was in 2014, and that person ended up getting out and molesting a child.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I know. So that was the last time they overturned a life sentence. So since 2014, nobody has had a sentence reduction of any sort in Nebraska, because they've now grown fear because this person managed to get through, right? And now they're afraid because they don't want the backlash of the public, right? It's scary. It's hard to know, but that's really our biggest debate. And victims.
I genuinely think time isn't always the best mechanism to utilize as a punishment.
I agree.
Because if you're real, what are you trying to get out of this? Are you trying to get reformation so that this never happens again? Are you trying to get healing for the victim? Are you trying to get justice for the victim? What are ways for them to get that? I think there could be a better opportunity And frankly, there needs to be healing for everyone too, where just as much as I talk about defense side needs, and the only reason I'm talking about the defense side is because that's where I'm at.
Exactly.
And I know there's no one standing up. I obviously feel victims' families deserve more.
Yeah.
I feel like hopefully there's services for that. What are ways for there to be better justice served, so to speak, rather than just saying, this is how much time you're doing? Because they're not equitable.
Exactly.
It's what do you want to get out of this?
Yeah. And on a state level, every state sentences differently. If my husband was sentenced in 6 or 7 different states right now, he wouldn't be where he is. He'd be free. He'd be walking the streets. But just so happened that the state that he was in sentences a certain way. So everybody in different states are evaluating time differently. And the reality is that some people it would take maybe 5 years to rehabilitate, some it would take 20, but also what are you doing in those 5 years to get rehabilitated? What are you offering these people to rehabilitate them? Like how much community involvement? I could go on with this forever, but I feel that rehabilitation, in order to experience it, part of that is giving back to the community that you hurt. So learning about people, especially when it comes to cases like murder and taking a life or assaulting someone or whatever, you need that connection to humanity again, because you need to realize, right? So I don't know. Anyway, I could go on forever. It's a big topic. Is there any advice you would give someone who's went through what you went through if they were at the beginning of such a journey?
Yeah, that's actually good. I would tell them, do not let your season become a life sentence. Not to give up on themselves. Do not quit. Don't quit fighting for your family. Winston Churchill said a saying that I used to absolutely love, and it was something along the lines of, if you feel like you're going through hell, keep going. Because it is very easy when your world is very dark to think, I can't get through this. There is no way I can have anything good happen to me again. This is just so bad. And I hope that our story is one that helps inspire people that will have them to keep going, that they won't give up, because life is seriously short. This is a blip, and we owe it to do the best that we can. Even when you've made horrible mistakes, you can still turn it around. So that is what I would want to encourage them, is to just not give up, that you can get through it. You're stronger than you realize.
I love that. Is there anything that you wish you would have done differently?
Yeah, I actually wish in a lot of ways that I would have maybe removed myself from the court experience a little bit more and protected myself. I literally felt like a lamb walking along the road to be slaughtered a lot of times. I'd go to court, and every time it was something worse, and it was such an abusive experience going there. So abusive. And I was abused by people. Like, it was allowed because I was my husband's wife.
Affiliated.
And I, in many ways, wish I would not have allowed myself to be treated that way. I wish I would have maybe removed myself from some of those experiences and protected myself more from that trauma, but coulda, woulda, shoulda. Yeah. And so that's why one of my things is, if I know someone, I would want to go to court with them so they just don't have to go. That was the worst experience ever, being there by yourself. And the amount of hate, I'm a feeler, so I could feel everything. And so that was really hard. So I wish in some ways I wouldn't have put myself through all that.
Wow. Were you really by yourself in court?
Sometimes.
Wow.
Yeah. Most of the time I did have people, but literally I had someone who went with me and they were shook up for weeks.
Wow.
And they said, I don't know how you can do this, because they have never experienced the amount of hate and people saying things to you about, I hope your husband dies, I hope they cry. I was not treated very well. And it was very traumatic. Like I said, I believed my husband was innocent. So I understand this is coming from a place of anger, but it was very traumatic for me.
Yeah.
And very painful. And when you just have to take it and you're fearful for even your physical safety at times, it was very much not a healthy place for me. And I feel like I wish I would have removed myself. But yeah, I did have people who would come a couple of times. They had guards walk with us. But
sometimes I like to end the episodes giving you a chance to say, if your husband was listening to this right now, what you would like to tell him.
Oh, that's so good. I would just tell him I am like so sad for what happened and what you did, but I absolutely am so proud of what you have done to ensure that something would never remotely get to this place again. I'm so proud of the hard work you put in, and I'm proud of the heart that you have. And I do hope one day people will see him for who he is, not for what he did. And that's how I do look at him, is I know who you are. And I'm really proud of him. I know what he's gone through, and I know what we've gone through, and I'm so, so proud of him, because he could very much blame this on other things and other people, and he absolutely doesn't do that at all. I'm so proud of the ownership that he does take, which I understand is very contrary to what people have heard, but you don't know him. You haven't talked to him. You haven't sat with him. You've never heard his side. You don't know what he's gone through, what he's experienced. And I have, and I've seen it, and I've seen the growth, and I'm just so proud of him for that.
That's amazing. And he really could have gone another direction and crumpled. To face that and acknowledge it and face it and deal with the consequences and work. That is huge. When a lot of people would turn to drugs and turn to trying to forget and turn to all these bad things, your husband really took the man's road of taking ownership, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and he needs to teach other men that too. And he does talk to them about that, the accountability, because in prison, and your husband will probably say this too, he does see that men will not want to deal with things.
Yeah.
They don't take ownership.
No.
And then their spouses are still grappling with all the things that happened, and they almost want to wait till they get home to deal with it. And it's like, no, do not waste that time. Get healthy and whole so that when you go home, you're in the best state possible emotionally and spiritually, right? So that you're able to build your family. Because it's going to be a hard adjustment when they come back. Like, it just is.
Yeah.
Don't make it, that's when you start working on yourself, and that's when you start working on your marriage, and that's when you start working on a relationship with your kids. You need to do it when you're in there.
It's so true. You're so right. Just like want to forget the chunk of their life that they were in prison and not utilize it the way they should and could. The amount of books that my husband has read and the amount of knowledge that he has gained in the time that he has been there, that I don't have access. I don't have that amount of time to be able to do that.
Yeah.
To read and know and whatever. There's some missed time for some of these people to grow and rehabilitate. Anyways, I cannot tell you how grateful I am for this time that you spent with me. Thank you so much.
Aww. Thank you for your thoughtful questions. They were so good.
I'm glad.
Like, I appreciate that you are very a deep thinker and you want to help people too, even with your storytelling. So thank you.
Thanks. And I love your social media. So for anyone else who wants to follow you who isn't yet, how can they find your social media?
It's at The Real Inmate's Wife, and I'm on Instagram and TikTok.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and I hope you have a good night.